Acceptance in Ninjago is a very important concept. It is something that has driven a lot of our main characters in very important directions over the course of the show, and whilst this whole entire theme of acceptance started off extremely on the nose, it definitely has evolved into something that I would describe to be perfect. But there is a very notable and distinct journey when it does come to this theme of acceptance, and when you do look at it and you look at the examples that aren't as recognised, you truly do understand that Ninjago really has nailed down this theme. And that's just kind of what I want to talk about today. Appreciate how Ninjago perfected acceptance. Now, acceptance has also always been used as an analogy when it does come to true potential, and that is where the theme truly did begin. Each of the ninja had to come over something that was ultimately holding them back, and it does get described to us perfectly how each of the ninja do overcome those obstacles, but there is a hidden layer of meaning behind all of those obstacles that they did overcome. In order of when the ninja actually did accomplish their true potential, Zane, for example, the ultimate thing that was holding him back was the fact that he never truly knew that he was in fact an android, and I do think that is a very good way to actually foundation when it does come to Zane's true potential, but there was more meaning to this. The thing is that Zane never truly felt part of the team. Zane felt ultimately disconnected from everyone else, and it was the reason why he was seeking out answers. It was the reason why he wanted to figure more out about who he truly was, and honestly, to an extent, the reason why he at one point believed he was the Green Ninja. The thing is that he never truly felt part of the team, and that's the unacknowledged part of acceptance, because once he realized who he truly was, what made him unique, what had made him different, he was able to accept his role when it did come to the ninja team, and I do think that was ultimately the perfect case of acceptance in its initial form. Next up on the True Potential roster was actually Jay, and his whole true potential depended on the idea that he was in fact his own person. He was Jay Walker. He wasn't anything else that he was presenting himself to be. The ultimate obstacle that was holding him back was the fact that he was trying to impress Nia. He was trying to be something that he wasn't because he thought that was the key, and that extends into the point of acceptance. He couldn't almost accept himself as a human, never alone accept himself on the ninja team, because he thought he had to be something that he simply wasn't. So ultimately in the end, he was able to unlock his power because he got that confirmation from her that he just needed to be himself. And that is again the moment where he realized who he truly was and how he accepted who he was in more ways than one. Another glorious example of acceptance. Cole's true potential stemmed from the fact that he had a very rocky relationship with his father. His father believed that he was a dancer all this time and not actually a ninja, and that is the most blatant way of showing that Cole never really seen himself as a part of the ninja team in a lot of ways. The thing is that he couldn't accept the fact that he was a ninja because his father never did, and once his father was able to, he was able to unlock his true potential. Again, going into the point of acceptance, he was able to accept the fact that he was a ninja because his father did. Again, really demonstrating the fact that all of these ninja were a team, but weren't actually a team until they hit these points. And then Kai, of course, he had to accept the fact that he wasn't the Green Ninja. He had to accept the fact that he was the Red Ninja. He was the Fire Maker. He was the Red Savior, not the Green one. And I think that is a very important fact as well. He never accepted his role on the team because he thought he was a different role of the team. He always saw himself as a part of it, just not in the way that he truly envisioned it. And again, really interesting to see that he had to handle the fact that he had to accept where he was and what his true calling was. Again, I absolutely adore these examples, and they really did work. All four of them had this secondary meaning as to what it truly meant to accept and hit your own true potential. Like I said, we do know how they unlocked it and what the obstacles were, just not the objective that was truly underneath. And that is the beauty of it, and that was only the first instance of acceptance within Ninjago. It is beyond these four, and it's the rest of the team, and even in another character to be more specific. But more on him later, and let's talk about the other ninja when it does come to acceptance. Lloyd's ultimate moment of acceptance was accepting the fact that he was the ultimate Spinjitzu master. Lloyd, by all accounts, unlocked his true potential, but more in the forced sense. The thing is that the Temple of Light gave him his true potential. It gave him golden power, and he did have access to golden power, but he never unlocked his true potential in the sense of he had to overcome an obstacle. The obstacle was the fact that he had to face his father, and he does ultimately accomplish that feat. But the thing is that you will notice that he never truly becomes gold, and he never accepts his true calling until he truly accepts the fact that he had to fight the Overlord. Lloyd accepted in that moment who he was and what he had to do, and it is reflected in the fact that as soon as he did become gold, his exact words were, "I am the ultimate Spinjitzu master," a literal acceptance of the calling and a literal acceptance of the prophecy that he knew all this time. I absolutely adore this one because it is the most obvious example of acceptance of the bunch, and I really do love it for that fact. What's interesting to me though is that whilst all of the ninja had these amazing moments, Nia, being the last of the core original 6, actually has 2 moments of acceptance within the show, and both of them having completely different meanings but having the same effect at the same time. The first one is her true potential scene in Possession like the rest of the ninja. She had to accept the fact that she wasn't Samurai X. She was the ninja, she was the water ninja, she was what they needed to be in that moment, and she wasn't able to go back in that moment as well. Of course she wanted to, and that is covered in season 7, but the thing is that in this moment Nia understood that that was her calling, and the fact is that she couldn't let her fear of failure get the best of her, and that again stems into this idea that she needed to be a part of the ninja team. She always wanted it, and the moment that she had the opportunity she almost got cold feet, and she accepted the fact that that was her role, and it was a really good one at that. But like I said, she does have a second moment of acceptance within the show, and it's in Seabound. Nia accepted the fact that she was no longer able to protect herself from what she had to do. She had to merge with the sea to protect her loved ones, protect the people of Ninjago, and ultimately save the world as they knew it. The thing is that she accepted the fact that she didn't have the time that she wanted with Jay, Kai, her parents, all of her loved ones around her, because that this was her calling. She accepted that she had to do this thing which she believed that she was never going to be able to come back from, and it was the sacrifice that she had to bear. Again, I love this example. I love this idea that Nia had to accept who she was in this moment. I think it's a really symbolic and a really poetic look when it does come to the character, because Nia, who was this very independent, not wanting to be a part of a boy band girl, was ultimately the one that never really wanted to leave it. But she made that decision, and I think it's such an amazing example of it. All of these examples really did come together to formulate something new and a very brand new perspective on Ninjago for me, and it honestly is one of the biggest reasons why I love this show. The thing is that this is such a beautiful example on how you can interpret things in a very different sense. Of course, we get fed the information about the true potentials and the obstacles that the ninja needed to face, but there is these hidden meanings behind all of these stories. Whether the writers realize it or not, the thing is that these are very real aspects of these characters, and very much unspoken aspects of these characters at that, and I think that's why they are brilliant. I think that is why these really do come across as fantastic stories, and the reason why they're so iconic. There are so many angles, so many directions, and so many thoughts when it does come to these moments that I really do think stand out amongst the show. And you may think these are the examples of acceptance within Ninjago, but there are actually 2 more characters that really do demonstrate this. The first one should come as no surprise, because it's one of the few other characters within the show that has had a true potential, and that is Sora. Sora is very disconnected from the rest of the ninja because she does it so much later on, but the thing is that she still demonstrates the aspects of acceptance that I really do appreciate and really do love. Sora, by all accounts, and quite literally shown within the show, didn't feel like she belonged in the ninja team. She didn't believe that she belonged whatsoever, and she thought it was ultimately something destined for Aaron. She didn't even believe that she had an elemental power. She didn't accept the fact that that is who she was and that was her calling. She couldn't even accept to an extent her own name. Of course, she called herself Sora, and that is her name by all accounts, but her parents never accepted that. They always referred to her as Anna, and they always referred to her as something that she just simply was never the case to be. And I think that is ultimately what was holding her back, and the reason why she never accomplished much in terms of her acceptance. Of course, her true potential did lie in the fact that she did ultimately accept her calling. And it is literally that. She accepted that she was Sora, she accepted she was a ninja, and she accepted the fact that her powers were her own. She was very much in this acceptance feel, and it was definitely a lot more on the nose than the rest of them. But the thing is that you can see that as an example on how the true potential truly works. It's not just those obstacles, it is that acceptance factor, and that is the biggest part of Sora. And again, the reason why this theme continues and continue to perfect the entirety of it. But with that character out of the way, it does bring us into the final one when it does come to the theme of acceptance, and again the theme of perfecting acceptance. And ironically, that character is actually Garmadon. Garmadon you may not expect to be a part of Acceptance within the show, but to be honest, he's one of the most potent and one of the most reoccurring people when it does come to this theme. The entirety of Garmadon's life has been a constant struggle with accepting who he truly was. Of course, when Garmadon was initially bitten by the Devourer, he never really wanted to be evil, and it's very much reflected in the fact that he never wanted to fight Lloyd. And you may think that that's just a simple decision of Garmadon at the time, but it actually then does track forward when it does come to Garmadon reincarnated in Season 8. That is a version of Garmadon that didn't have the hesitations that Garmadon had in Season 2. It was a version of Garmadon where the good sides of him weren't holding him back, and that version of Garmadon accepted who he was. Garmadon accepted the fact that he was in fact the Destroyer, something that Garmadon never did beyond that point, and because of it, he found his true potential. He accepted that he was not a good person anymore, and he was able to go forward in accordance with it. It is perfectly tracking back to the theme that we all loved, and the thing is that you can further justify that when it does go continuing for him. A big question I've always had about Garmadon is how does he retain his powers post Season 10? We always had established that it was conflict that ultimately fueled Garmadon. It was always that anger and that fight that reignited his powers. But the thing is that it does go back to true potential. I don't think it was conflict whatsoever, because he isn't in conflict when he's with Vinny. So how does he keep the powers? Well, again, he's accepting himself as he truly is. Of course, he accepted the fact that he was the Destroyer in Season 8, and that is how he has his powers for all of that time. But beyond that point, he accepts the fact that he's trying to do better, he's trying to do right, he's trying to learn how to truly navigate life, and he is using Vinny, of course, for that motive. And that is why Garmadon is able to retain his powers. He's accepted the fact that he's trying to do better, and it's allowed him to continue to have access to that elemental ability. Garmadon is beyond the example that acceptance truly was the aspect that fueled him. Of course, conflict had a factor. Of course, it made him stronger. In similar vein to the fact that the ninja ultimately lost their true potential because they lost the golden weapons. Of course, there are factors that can adjust the benefits of true potential. But the thing is that the case of acceptance has and always will be there and will always be a continuous factor. All of the ninja, Garmadon, Sora, they all had this feeling of acceptance in the role that they had within the land of Ninjago. They all had this role that they had to play, and they all came to realize that they had to accept that fact. And it led to this ultimate theme of the fact that they accepted who they truly were. They accepted everything that came with being the protectors of the lands. And I think it truly is something beautiful to see. Because when you take a look at all of this information and then you look at it as a whole, you realize that this is one of Ninjago's strongest themes. It's one of the strongest messages, and it's one of the strongest aspects of the show itself. It's accepting who you are, it's accepting your flaws, it's accepting everything about you and taking what is bad and applying it to the good. It's becoming the best version of yourself and accepting who you are within the world itself. And it's something that you can take on to your real life. It is something that you can truly use in your day-to-day, because it's a very real message and a very good one at that. And Ninjago, in my opinion, has definitely perfected its delivery. I don't think they've ever had a bad moment of acceptance within the show. They've always really nailed this theme and really shown that this is something that you should see within life. And honestly, I couldn't be happier that this is how they have honestly demonstrated it. But on overall, I really do like this theme. I really do like this idea of acceptance, and I truly do believe that Ninjago has perfected it. And I would like to know what you guys think of it. Do you like this whole idea of acceptance? Do you acknowledge the theme that it has gone for? Do you like how they have done it? Are there more examples that I haven't mentioned? I would love to know what you think of it, and really like to know your thoughts when it does come to it. Because like I said, I really do think they've perfected acceptance. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it more in the future. But that is about it for today, you guys, and thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing. Having more people to talk about Ninjago is really fun. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends on screen. A particular shout out to Grandmaster Sensei 28208 for being an eternal legend. Thank you very much, my friend. But like I said, that is about it for today, you guys, and thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay, bye!